Uh, are you able to listen to me? Hello, are you able to hear to me, Milind sir? Please test your mic once.
मिलिंदचा माईक ऑन करू का? हा झाला.
Please test your mic once. Yeah.
येस ठीक आहे.
Okay. Thanks.
हो हो फक्त त्याला आवडते म्हणून आहेत ना त्यांचं नाही.
Uh, I request others to mute their mics, and we will start. Are you able to see the presentation?
Yes, I'm able to see.
Yeah. So welcome to you all. This is a Social Studies Foundation program. This panel discussion on reflections on caste and race. And we have arranged this program for of ebook. In June, we had one international webinar, Black Lives Matter, Indian Perspectives. So Social Studies Foundation based in Pune, and this program facilitate discussion on urgent social issues that are before us as a society. And the distinguished speakers in the panel here are Shri Upendra Singh, IPS officer, investigations officer in Shri Girish Makwana, Australian Indian filmmaker, Dr. Lavanya Vemsani from US, Advocate Ravindra Lagade will not be joining this session because his daughter had some accident and he is in the hospital right now. So sorry for that. Milind Kamble sir is also here. He is Padma Shri awardee and founder chairman of DECI. I will have introduction of all the guest speakers later. But first, let me welcome all the dignitaries, and we also be having a few of the speakers and chairpersons of earlier session. So the distinguished panel over here is Upendra Singh Baghel, IPS officer, and presently he is investigation specialist in United Nations, and he is working with United over 20 years, and he is BTech from IIT Kanpur. He is basically from Ita in Uttar Pradesh. He joined civil took up assignments of United Nations peacekeeping forces in Angola. He also has investigated genocide in Rwanda, and he's also an expert in Afghan conflicts. So his views and perspectives from the United Nations, working as top level officials, those would be not representing the United Nations, but his experience and perspectives really matter in this. We also have Dr. Lavanya Vemsani with us. She's a professor of history of social science, State University, Ohio in US. She had two PhDs. One is in religious studies, McMaster University, and other is in history from University of Hyderabad. She's also editor-in-chief of International Journal of Indic Studies, and she's president and president-elect of Ohio Academy of History. So a great scholar of history and social studies is with us. She will be sharing her views about caste and race and the comparison thereof. Then we also have Shri Girishji Makwana. He's basically Gujarat and right now based in Australia. He had his degree in microbiology, but later since he has also interest in music, he pursued bachelor and masters in Maharaja Sayajirao University, Baroda. And in Australia, he had masters in film and TV production in RMIT Melbourne. Recently, he has produced a very good movie, The Color of Darkness, and the movie has a certain narrative about the discrimination it's facing by Asians and other migrants in Australia, and also some reflection on caste-based discrimination also. And he's a wonderful personality. Not only he has directed the movie, but also lyrics and composition is all his. So welcome him on this panel, and his creative would be very enlightening. Uh, we are not having right now with us Mr. Ravindra Lagade. He is barrister and solicitor in London and a director of a legal firm at RR Global Infotech. So we'll be missing his views. Then we have Shri Milinda Kamble, Padma Shri awardee of 2013 at a very young age. He is a founder chairman of DICI, Dalit Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, with work in India. He's a chief managing director of MP companies, and he's also chairman of IIM Jammu, and that is a wonderful work he's doing. He's also co-chair of India Malaysia CEO Forum, and when he was a young student, he also participated in Mahatma Babasaheb Ambedkar Sandesh Yatra in Maharashtra, and there was one big agitation for renaming Dr. Marathwada University in the name of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. Now it is Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Marathwada University. So I also welcome Milind Kamble sir to this panel discussion. We are going to have this ebook publication, that is Black Lives Matter Indian Perspectives. We held the session on 24th to 26th June, the 3 days international webinar, and Racism in the World, Genesis, Problem and Challenges, Black Lives Matter 360-degree view, Combating Discrimination, Indian Ethos, where the themes of the discussion over there. Dr. Shailendra Devolankar, Yashika Singh from South Africa, then MS from Manipal University, Dr. Sachin Nadda from UK, also Ramesh Patange from Maharashtra, very well-known thinker, and Dr. Kundan Singh from Hindu University of America deliberated on these matters. So what is there in the book, what we have spoken about, that the movement started with the brutal death of George Floyd. The Black Lives Matter, it did not remain a hashtag, but spread as a movement world over. Then we had the overview of racism and the historical roots, and Dr. Devolankar spoke about three in US history, and he said that the problem of racism is in the mindset, and we have to address that issues. Yashika Singh spoke about her experiences of apartheid in South Africa, and also spoke about how to address it, and the Ubuntu and the spirit of oneness was the thing she had offered the solution related to it. Then Dr. Nandakishore tried to locate the movement, the timing of it, the contradictions, and maybe the false narrative into it. Why now and why violence? Were the questions put up by him. And Dr. Sachin Nanda offered a very different viewpoint. The generational unemployment in the black communities in US and loss of social capital, how to address it. And the question answer sessions were also very engaging. So it is complicated, and no society is perfect, and we have to move towards more discrimination free society. The last day session was combating discrimination Indian ethos. रमेश पतंगे जी ने वंशभेद, जाति भेद यह भारत का चिंतन नहीं, और भगवान बुद्ध का जाति भेद पर जो प्रहार हुआ भारतीय संविधान की धरोहर पर, हम कैसे आगे बढ़ रहे हैं इसके बारे में अपनी बातें सबके सामने रखे. Then Dr. Kundan Singh also spoke about Vedantic philosophy to end the discrimination and the plan of unity and diversity that we all have. With this, I now request all of us, the dignitaries, to have the publication of the ebook. I will be sharing the website over here, and I will stop sharing this presentation for right now. This is the website of newsbharati.com, and you may go to the e-paper, read e-books, and you have this view. And on behalf of all the dignitaries, I'm presenting this as the book, The Black Lives Matter Indian Perspectives. So a few of the pages over there. And the request on behalf of the organizers is that we should have to get the ebook. It is free, and the registration is only to have who is reading these books. So with this, I will again move towards the registration part. So I request all the dignitaries that now we have the publication and the release function of this ebook, and we will now move towards the later part. That on this occasion we have organized the panel discussion. We thought it pertinent to have the panel discussion on this theme. So here are a few slides related to the ebook. And the video links of the earlier webinar are also. And now to the present panel discussion that we all are eager to hear the view related to it. So let me put forth the perspective and the stand of Social Studies Foundation related to it. That we are all against all kinds of discrimination, and we are for discrimination-free and inclusive society. And we believe in social cohesion and non-violent ways. Racism and the European experience is very much there, and they are trying to view the caste-based discrimination from the racial perspective of the others. And there are certain efforts that were also evident during the question answer sessions to equate it with the caste discrimination. But we believe that caste is not the same as race. And caste-based discrimination, yes, it is still there in India, but it is not the racial discrimination that we have to understand. And the burden of colonial concepts is very much there. That is why I have put here a statement that the racial classification theories became a new tool of authority for European colonizers. So whatever is the maybe equating it with the caste, is it good or not? There are some academic efforts related to it to put forth them in perspective. J.S. Ghurye, he wrote a book, maybe the earlier book, The Caste and Race in India in 1932. And in his book, he has given some examples of the earlier British administrators. Denzil Ibeston, he said that the caste is occupational in origin. Then John Masefield, he denied race of caste. But when we move forward to Herbert Rees, who was the ethnographer and was instrumental in 1901 census, there was certain effort to have racial profiling of India and to have national index over there, and the sample was very few. And on the basis of that, they tried to provide certain racial profile of India on mixing it in various races. So it has been dubbed as pseudo-scientific racism by many of the scholars later. So the colonial preoccupation is very much evident over there. And when you go to Britannia Encyclopedia, there is entry about race in Asia, and under that Yasuko Takizawa, he says that colonizers were occupied with race. And another article by a research paper by Race and Caste distinction by Oliver Cox, he says that caste relations are not race. Race differentiates on basis of physical traits, and caste is a way of social stratification, not a physical or biological feature. Dr. Ambedkar also has something to say about it, and in fact, his first essay as a student, Caste in India, the Mechanism, Genesis, and Development, in 1916 in Columbia University, what he says that caste is parceling of an already homogeneous unit. Of the genesis of caste is the explanation of this genesis of parceling. So whether a tribe or a family was racially Aryan or Dravidian was a question which never troubled the people of India until the foreign scholars came in and began to draw a line, and the color of the skin had long ceased to be a matter of importance. So Dr. Ambedkar categorically says that caste is not race, it is, and we have to fight this discrimination, and there have been certain efforts related to it. For that, we have to understand the caste discrimination in India is the problem. But there are at the same time efforts for social cohesion through the centuries by various saints and even in modern age social reformers like Phule, Ambedkar, Shahu Maharaj, and many others. Then Indian Constitution abolished untouchability. There are certain issues related to social inequality, and there have been certain provisions to address it. Article 15 and other provisions are for that. And regarding affirmative actions, the reservations and the social justice perspective and the societal efforts are very much evident into it. So we will discuss all these issues related to caste and race, and whether comparing caste and race, how we can go for it. So with this, I now invite the first speaker, Upendra Singh Baghel, I request him on behalf of the panel that sir, you should deliberate your view on this very important matter. Over to you, sir. Upendra ji.
Thank you very much, and good evening to Dr. Sanjay Tambavat.
Yeah.
Tambat, sorry.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether Mr. Ravindra Kirkole is here or not. So good evening to him if he is there, and also Mr. Dev and the distinguished panelist, Dr. Lavanya Bemsani, Sri Girish Makwana, and Sri Milind Kambleji. Yeah. So namaskar to all of you, and thank you very much for inviting me for this discussion. I say that the Social Studies Foundation and News Bharati are partnering for this lively debate on contemporaneous social issues such as the present one, which is the reflection on caste and race. I have already circulated my write-up, which will be given to all the panelists and other members, depends on Dr. Sanjay Tambatji. In today's information age, the perception is generated and created through well-crafted media strategy. The audience does not have the time to read and critically evaluate an information and its veracity, context, and critical assessment. What is fiction or selective twist or fiction is difficult to distinguish. Now, at this stage, I would like to look the issue of caste through the prism of international instruments accepted by most of the countries, including India, and then whether there is a discrimination on the basis of these. There can be glaring cases of discrimination or invisible forms of discrimination through our subconscious state of mind generated out of bias and prejudices and stereotypes. Or there can be only perception. Stereotypes and these biases are very much common in our country. Perception and reality both may be different. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Perception in the eyes of the beholder. In this context, caste in India is to be analyzed with both perception and reality. It is the reality of the Indian social, political, economic, and cultural structures and also ethos. As according to Anais Nin, a French Cuban American novelist, we don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. And it is true for our brothers and sisters who negate the caste reality in our country. Now, the contemporary era of today, a modern era, we can think after the Second World War, when the world got more interlinked and started gathering on one platform. Then the global institutions and international mechanisms, albeit their weaknesses and limitations, started developing. We as Indians then realized our dream when we became independent from British rule in 1947 and adopted the most progressive constitution in 1950. We have demonstrated the whole world, that we are proud of our culture and history of 5,000 years and our ancient peace-loving religion. Many centuries, the Emperor Asoka proclaimed that humankind is one and that the humanity is the highest religion of all. And one cannot forget the discourse of Swami Vivekananda in the World's Parliament of Religions in Chicago in 1893, where he called for the religious tolerance and an end to fanaticism. United Nations took birth on 26 June 1945 in San Francisco, and I've been associated with this organization for the last almost 20 years. And the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted by the General Assembly on 10 December 1948. It's not a binding document, but an ideal document, cumulative consent of all nations on its provisions. Article 2 says, everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, and others. Article 16 says that men and women of full age, without any limitation due to race, nationality, or religion, have the right to marry and to found a family. India, as a progressive country, understands its situation very well, and so puts the provision in the Constitution of India under the rights all discrimination on the basis of including caste, which Dr. Sanjay has referred. Article 15, 16, 23, 29 of fundamental rights, I don't want to go through because we all know. Same time, we know that untouchability is abolished right from beginning. But from my career in police in 1995 or 96, when I was SP in one of the districts, I found untouchability practiced in the villages where in a restaurant separate cups used to be kept by the restaurant owners. Now, I do not know, but still untouchability will be there in villages of the country. Following after the above, India ratified International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination in 1968 and International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights in 1970. In addition to these, India also became part of many other treaties, including on women and children. These are the treaties that the ratifying states are to abide by them unless they put exceptions in ratifications. In all these, racial discrimination is generally referred to any distinction, exclusion, restriction, or preference based on race, color, descent, national, ethnic origin. For the protection of human rights and fundamental freedoms in the political, economic, social, and cultural field of public life, the discrimination covers these criteria, including then sex, language, political opinion. Caste is not covered in these instruments. International instruments do not recognize the caste as per se, as the basis of discrimination, because it was not seen at the Global Forum in 1948. And later, when these covenants, conventions, protocol, and treaties were drafted, debated, and adopted, it didn't mean that discrimination was not in India or in South Asia. Also, most of the affected communities of caste discrimination are in South Asia, but similarly affected groups are also found in other parts of Asia as well as in Africa, in the Middle East, and diaspora communities, including in UK. That's why UK Parliament put the bill sometime in 2013 or 14, if I'm correct. If I'm correct. Nevertheless, India incorporated the criteria enumerated in international instruments and caste in its constitution and operationalized them through legal mechanisms and various focused commissions such as Commission on SC and ST, Commission on Women, Child Rights, Commission on Backward Classes. However, with concerns of India, the discrimination on the basis of caste remains on the agenda of international mechanism. And subsequent jurisprudence has made it clear that these treaty norms also cover these forms of discrimination and that states therefore have a legal obligation under international law to address such discrimination. This has been particularly forcefully by the Committee on Elimination of Racial Discrimination in the 2002 General Recommendation number 29 on descent-based discrimination, where the committee says descent-based discrimination includes discrimination forms of social stratification such as caste and analogous system. The most recent report, which you can find, of the Special Rapporteur on Minority, which was issued in 28 January 2016, it concludes that discrimination based on caste and analogous system is deeply embedded in interpersonal and communal relationships in caste-affected countries, and it is a major cause of poverty, inequality, and social exclusion of affected communities. The report recommends that the country should have clear objective and measures in a wide range of areas, including poverty reduction strategies, employment, health, housing, and others, including access to justice, and special measures such as quota system, job reservation scheme to continue. This committee then further recommends that states to develop discrimination, including on the grounds of caste, in all development and programs, implementation of caste analysis methodology in humanitarian assistance framework to adequately identify the communities, as well as implementation mechanisms to ensure that humanitarian relief is equally distributed, which is fundamental to prevent caste-based discrimination from being replicated. As far as international jurisprudence is concerned, the difference between race and caste is not of much concern. Even in Genocide Convention, I'm a part of Rwanda Tribunal for long 15 to 16 years and watching how Genocide Convention is interpreted. Wherever genocide is the crime of intent to destroy in whole or in part national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such, here also various courts have expanded the definition that concept of group must be assessed in the light of a particular political, social, cultural context, and the group must have a particular distinct identity and be defined as such by its common characteristic rather than a lack thereof. So here the real issue is the discrimination. Then if this tackle the consequences, which may be disastrous if not tackled in the beginning. Position. This is my view on this thing. Just I want to quote: "We can do nothing to change the past, but we have enormous power to shape the future. Once we grasp that essential insight, we recognize our responsibility and capability for building our dreams of tomorrow and avoiding our nightmares." This is from Edward Fornes, founder of the World Future Society. So let's do for the future. So we have to recognize discrimination is there. There's a caste discrimination is there. Only thing we have to do the research methodology to take out and then adopt a systematic and widespread methodology, so that if we realize the real issue, then only we can tackle the issue. Caste and race are two things, but real issue is discrimination rather than caste and race. Even though there is no international instrument as per se, but definition has been expanded, and there are challenge for that also. Thank you.
Thank you, Upendra ji, for sharing your enlightened views. And you especially spoke about the perceptions and reality. And yes, we do accept that there is a caste-based discrimination still in India, and the international jurisprudence you spoke about, that we also have to be aware about it. And as you rightly said, that we have to shape the future and move towards the discrimination-free society. So how India can contribute into it. So right now we will be having the historical view about the caste and race. And I request Lavanya Vemsani ma'am to deliberate her views about it. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Tambat, and thank you to my distinguished panelists, Sri Upendra Bagel, Sri Girish Makwana, Sri Ravindra Lagare, and Sri Milind Kamble. Thank you, everyone, for joining on a Sunday. I will be speaking on the topic caste and race in India, historical perspectives. When we look at Indian history, the one thing that stands out is that there is no concept or system to caste a race in classical India. Social divisions are common to any society, but unlike other classical societies, they were not systematized or imposed from the top in India. As classical society of India is concerned, the social divisions are and mattered in small circles. Most of our current views on systematization of caste and race come from alien rule. First the Mughal and then the British. The alien rulers tried to take advantage of the differences by fixing a system that served their administrative purposes more than the social life of the common folk. Caste or race was not important to the Indian rulers or Indian people, as Sri Tambat has noted just now. It existed as a self-regulatory community mechanism among the people, which probably played most important role during marriage and adoptions rather than in public sphere. Using caste in public sphere is a colonial phenomenon. The difficulty that British faced when they began collecting and organizing social data in India itself is indicative of the absence of systematization of social divisions in India. In classical India, caste is detached from king or political power. In classical India, village is seen as an administrative unit. Ardhashastra, as we have already noted, village is deemed to be a unit consisting of 100 households. Most probably, villages might have been smaller rather than larger. They might have consisted less than 500. I don't think any village units may have had 500 households. It is not the concern of the king or the administrative machinery of what each individual in this village unit did or to what community group or jati he or she belonged. That was the concern of the local area and the community mechanism. The community would accept its members, the community would excommunicate its own members. So it's a self-regulatory peer mechanism rather than an administrative mechanism. But this all changes when colonial administration begins. The hierarchy and opportunity is explained variously by later writers, but it is obvious that the classical society did not live by the book, as many of the punishments mentioned in the text were not recorded in practice. For example, from Huensong's Buchanan, recorded that various educational institutions and matas accepted students based on their merit and qualifications rather than caste or class. Nalanda University, famously known to have admitted students based on tests conducted by acharyas called gatekeepers. From my examination of South Indian inscriptions and matas, it can be said that caste was never mentioned as a feature of admission. Many Bhakti traditions and Shaiva schools situated in classical understanding of the sacred texts advocated against caste, even in later periods, beginning with 12th century onwards, when the crystallization of caste began, as the administrative mechanism starts taking note of them. Therefore, it could be understood that caste is not essential feature of Hinduism, but only a kinship organization prevalent in the Indian subcontinent, noticed among all religions. In fact, caste is not limited to Hindus, but spread across all religions, including Buddhists, Muslims, Christians in India. Christians, like Syrian Christians, actually claim to be Brahminical and high caste. And Parava fishermen, although Christian, are considered low caste. So, and in Andhra Pradesh, the high caste Reddis Christian still consider themselves to be high caste. So, so caste is not limited to Hinduism or not just part of Hinduism, but it's part of all religions in India. There is no division of classes or racial basis for classes as it is currently understood in India following colonial formula. There are two phases to this historical evolution of caste and race in India. One is the classical India between 300 to 1300 CE, and the next colonial alien era from 1300 onwards. The classical phase, 300 to 1300 CE, all the evidence that comes from ancient India shows two facts. There is a type of jati awareness existed among communities, but it is limited to kinship groups located in a small geographical region. Their extent is limited. Even though they have same names, their organization and particular rules differed from each region to the other region. The groups are not systematized. The kings did not impose or register rules or conduct census or surveys of any of these jati groups. Most of the community groups categorized as the jati regulated groups, not state regulated. This is in stark contrast to the social systems known as contemporary classical societies of the world. For example, Greek classes are highly systematized. For example, Athenian society, only 10% are free, while the rest of them are slaves, and everything is recognized and standardized. China, similarly, slavery and class system is very highly regulated. It was first emperor Shi Huangdi who actually banned slavery and standardized the classes. And China continued to do the survey of aristocracy, survey of names and all that until recently. In Europe, the class system is highly systematized. In the classical world, we know how systematized it was. In India, of course, the jati and there was no concept of race, and jati, as it existed as a kinship group, is a fluid and flexible community groups. The professional jatis, sometimes when they change profession, the jati also changes. But when these jatis are fixed as castes, they lost the flexibility, fluidity, and movement. Many professional jatis are known from inscriptions and early literature. Some of the jatis are wealthy, even though they are categorized low now. But in classical society, they were actually tax-paying communities and professional communities. There are also some instances of some jatis recruiting members into their group, and some jatis actually separating themselves from the main jati and becoming an independent jati. So many of these professional jatis went out of jobs during Mughal rule and subsequently during the British rule, when mechanized and cheap products were introduced from Britain. Sorry, I lost it. So when machine-made goods were introduced, many professional classes actually lost their jobs, and many of them became poorer and lower classes, which was not the case in the classical India. Many of the professional jatis were actually quite wealthy. They made donations to the temple, and their names are noticed in the inscriptions. However, what is notable from Indian classical sources, there is no interference from the emperors or rulers to establish a jati or any effort to exploiting disputes between the jatis or among the jatis. The jatis actually resolved their disputes by themselves. It was only during British rule that the court tried to resolve these issues and started charging. So the Mughal beginnings of the systematization, it begins very slowly. Aini Akbari lists several Qawm. The caste is loosely termed as Qawm. Aurangzeb also used the term Qawm to distinguish Hindu groups recruited into his army during his Western campaigns. This is notable official use for the record in the official records. Up to that point, the kings or official records did not exist. For example, Tipu Sultan, of course, even during this time, there is a confusion between caste and religion. They used it both for caste and religion. For example, Tipu Sultan used it for religion and caste simultaneously. 3 years after his ascendance to the throne, he ordered seizure of all land grants held by temples and Brahmins within his dominion, while he simultaneously exempted qazis and representatives of Muslims and respectable Muslims from grain tax and house taxes. He also decreed that all new converts to Islam were to pay tax at half rate because Muslims were the most ahem qawm, worthy caste. So he's using this as a interchangeable term for caste and religion. Therefore, Islamic rule, we can note here, right? Islamic rule attempted to systematize it and infuse the caste system by recording them and according preferential status based on caste and religion. But this is a beginning of it. Next, in the British systematization, the British began systematizing caste. The most importantly used apparatus is the race theory they used in India, the mythical Aryan invasion theory. This theory is based on arrival of mythical Aryan race from mythical homeland away from India, who altered India by imposing their Varna system. This Varna system became the backbone of caste system that the British later developed. There is no genetic or archaeological basis for large-scale conquest or replacement of population between the period 2000 BCE to 1500 BCE. The genetic origin of all Indians can be traced to indigenous groups. The female genetic lines of India derive from M, and then its derivative M is dated to 74,000 years ago in India. And male genetic lines also come from M168 and YAP, and then M also datable to 70,000 years ago. Of course, there are minor small groups, but there are no major groups. There are no major migration and replacement noticed in the Indian subcontinent. So this theory, the racial migration and imposition, and then the light color, dark color, and being a different race, does not really apply to India. And the British carried on a large-scale survey of Indian population. In addition to this, they also carried the surveys, many surveys. It took not one, but 5 surveys to systematize Indian population according to race, religion, and also superimpose the category of caste. So you can imagine how difficult it was to actually divide the people on this. If an automatic classification, automatic caste existed in India, it would not have been that difficult. Even after imposing race theory, Aryan race theory, classification of Indian society was not very easy. So let's take a look at it, like a look at the surveys. You have others have given details, so I won't be giving full details, but I will just refer to them. So Colonel Sykes surveyed Maharashtra 1825 to 29. Francis Buchanan surveyed Mysore in 1800 and Eastern India in 1807 and 1813. 20 to 22, local officials are asked for individual statistics regions. And this confused the local collectors a lot. They did not know what to collect because, they're not used to making statistics of individual people. They are only used to collecting household. So, how many households are in a village, and they don't take note of what each individual is doing. The tax assessments and other assessments are also done jointly on the village, not on the heads. So this was something new for the tax collectors, not tax collectors, for the tax collectors as well as the local administrators. So when they really did the survey in 1822, it actually came out with 18 columns. So you can imagine how difficult it was. And it included all kinds of strange statistics, strange columns like houses, looms, oil presses, men, women, cows, everything. So in 1826, there was another survey conducted. They noted Muslims, Hindu, Jain, Parsi, Jew, Christian, and all of them. And then each of them are categorized into different subgroups. For example, Christian, the Christian are subgroups as, Syrian Christian or, other native Christian and, British Indian Christian, European Indian Christian, and Greeks are categorized separately for whatever reason. And European Christians are categorized separately. So categories and subcategories began to be crystallized and began to be used. But still it was very confusing. In 1881, when the census records for individuals came, some households actually recorded multiple religions. So it was very confusing. So in 1901, between 1901 and 1911, and Dr. Tambat has mentioned, H.H. Risley took a survey, and then he also took measurements, the so-called nasal index. And now is the time, these are all tried to be crystallized. The crystallization began after 1857, but the real crystallization began after 1881. So now there are races, there are tribes, there are castes. So the races, the martial races, of course, they said it's based on the nasal index and height and everything. But Punjabis and Gorkhas, both of them are categorized as martial races. But Bengalis, who are very similar to Gorkhas, were considered as ephemeral races, not eligible for military service. So the categorization was very absurd. And similarly, the tribes, classification of tribes is also very not really based on clear data. So some tribes were categorized discriminatorily as criminal tribes. In the British territories, they are criminal tribes, but in the neighboring princely states, they are not criminal tribes. So we can understand how social stratification is changed under the British rule. For example, Tevers, of course, are martial caste, warriors, but they are categorized as criminal tribes. And similarly, many castes that actually worked in military are categorized as criminal tribes in Andhra Pradesh and Deccan also. And Deccan, in addition to this, some castes are classified as Shudras, even though they are warrior, they have military background. For example, Rajputs were classified as Kshatriyas, while Marathas, even though they have a warrior and martial background, are classified as Shudras. And same thing with other castes in the Deccan, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, and Telangana. Kamma, Velama, Kapu, Reddy, although they claim high caste status and martial and Kshatriya status, they're all classed as Shudra. So the classification and how the castes are arranged in a hierarchy are also different from what is understood on ground level. The British classification is arbitrary. Although the census changes after the first War of Independence in 1857 and 58, race becomes more important. In all these cases, race is arbitrarily imposed on castes that were already there. So, the high caste and low caste separately classified into the race theory that was already developed. And categorization into these different groups is very useful for the people, so they went along with it. If somebody is categorized as martial race, of course they have opportunities to go and get recruited into military, police, and other jobs. If they are categorized into land-owning castes, of course they have opportunity to buy and own land. If they're not categorized as such, they could not. Land Alienation Act of 1900 prevented anybody else from buying land. So these caste classifications are very useful for some castes, discriminatory for some castes. For example, those categorized as criminal tribes are not eligible for any jobs, and they were isolated from others, and they were almost kept like in a small settlements as their movement is restricted. So the classification of castes and classes and tribes, races that was brought in by the British is more useful for British for their administrative purposes rather than to the Indian society. The Indian society is pushed into adapting something new and confusing. So as of now, what we have is a confusing jumble. The old kinship groups, of course, existed, but they lost their currency, their original structure and intent. Genealogical charts, of course, survived, but only used for marriage. Distinguished historian R.C. Majumdar collected some of these genealogical charts and tried to preserve them and then compile them in inscriptional evidence, inscriptional data. But genealogical charts are kept by the jatis, used only for marriage purposes. They were not public documents. They were not used by kings or any other regulatory authority. The regulation and systematization only comes from the British. I studied inscriptions of South India. The mention of personal names and social constructions are very rare. Many names, including jatis, are noted when professional jatis donate to the temples. But it's only classificatory. It doesn't really mention hierarchy or anything, or it doesn't also any racial differences. During colonial period, because of this systematization, two things happened. First thing, some castes began writing their caste histories, claiming mostly Kshatriya and high class status. For example, Kolis claimed Kshatriya status. And on the other hand, poorer caste began losing their caste altogether. They were moving to the urban areas and began losing their caste because they are not keeping in touch with the village jati community, or they're not entering into this genealogical charts that are kept by their elders of the Kula or Jati. So the urban poor and indentured, the indentured also because the British took them to faraway islands, gave up the caste altogether. And caste, of course, did not matter to devotional groups like that is another. So while caste system is being systematized by the British, caste system also did not exist for and for the matas and devotional groups, devotional traditions that did not consider caste as important for them. So that is also continuing. Post-independence, the British imposed caste system continued. Another new phenomenon noticed now is that formerly upper class that claimed high caste and warrior status now actually beginning to claim lower status, trying to seek reservations. For example, we can notice Patidar in Gujarat, Kapus in Andhra Pradesh. Many of the known higher castes are now seeking reservations and um, trying to claim lower status rather than higher status. So during British era, it was claiming higher status and martial status. Now it is, claiming lower status and lower caste, which is becoming popular. So in conclusion, caste and race are artificial constructs imposed on the Indian society. Prior to the alien rule, some form of community structure existed in India in the form of jati or kula, but it was neither systematized or not imposed as part of power structure of the state. Race is altogether an alien concept to India. Sociologists agree that race is artificial construct and must be abandoned in social and administrative policy decisions. The so-called races introduced into India, such as Aryan, Dravidian, martial races, ephemeral races, criminal tribes, are as artificial as the names sound. Thus, in India, caste is not an to measure inequality and underdevelopment due to its artificial systematization under the British. Rural poor still remain in poverty of to be helpful for all. Thank you very much. This is what I have about the historical evolution of caste in India. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Lavanya, for a very extensive overview of from classical society to the confusing status right now. And you rightly said that race is the artificial construct and how caste are systematized into it. So still we experience something that the caste-based discrimination is there and how to address that. And for that we also have some other perspectives related to it. So I now request Girish Makbanaji to put us put his thoughts before us. It must be maybe the creative angle, since he is a filmmaker and an artist as such. So I now request Girish to put forth his views. Girishji.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Where?
Can you see me?
Yes. Perfect.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. I just make sure, okay, everyone here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjay, to invite me this distinguished panel. Shri Upendra Bagle, Dr. Lavanya Vamsani, Advocate Ravindra Lagade, and Shri Amble, and the people or viewer who are joined us. And this is very interesting. I heard my speaker very distinguished and the very detailed explanation about the caste and race, and today's subject about caste and race. So I will not very explain that much deeply like them, but I will explain what my sense of understanding about the caste and race and the way I grew up, coming from Dalit family, grew up as a Dalit, seen as a discriminatory, faced a lot of discrimination, and but I'm very optimistic how to create to positive. And before I go to the creative part, just I would like to say, because now I'm living in Australia, and I see, and I've been all over the world, and I experience with European people most of the time, and how they look at us as the Indian, and a lot of majority people don't understand the caste system and how caste system is work and why it exists. So a lot of time I have to explanation or make them understand, and the societies exist in that manner and practice in that manner, and a lot of NRI also practice that caste in different manner, from wedding to all occasion. But I'm talking most of the part of the creative perspective and creative manner. In caste-based film in India, you can count in your hand, because in 1936 the first film was made, Achut Kanya, and it was a German director, and it's talking about the untouchable girl and Brahmin's boy falling in love and their situation. So that is the first movie made about the caste, and enlightened the bringing, not enlightened, the bringing the caste issue in a public in medium film first time. And then because film is such a commercial medium, so a lot of people very scared to touch this subject, or very scared to explain or explore to that subject, because there is a lot of things involved, the money and the time, the so. But still, I think there is a lot of brave filmmakers in India. They create the film about the caste, and they try to bring up the caste issue, and but still I think compared to the Hindi cinema, majority regional cinema is more advanced and more brave enough to bring that subject. So I can give you few name, which is the a lot of people maybe know, people did not know. So Achut Kanya 1936, Dusrai Sadi 1947, Sujata is another interesting film 1959 Bimal Roy created, and Sadgadi, this legendary filmmaker Satyajit Ray made this film, and another film called Damul 1985. The Basu Chatterjee created Chamale Ki Shadi. Then Shekhar Suman created Bandit Queen, and these films are most of the bringing up the issue of the Dalit women, Dalit people, and what is the core issue, and how society and how the people perception and how people think about. Because still, even the 2020, that we carry very strongly in that mentality about caste. A lot of people now, the stage is like a lot of people don't want to talk about the caste, because when you mention the caste, a lot of people just walk out or just stop, or they're not interested in talking. So like in race, because again, race and caste is totally different. Dr. Lavanya mentioned. Okay. Race, when you see, is like in foreign country, you say, or European, or you can see the by skin color. But again, in India, same culture, same DNA, I guess, and same culture, same religion, or even though they convert different religion, but same, basically same mentality, food and everything, and still the systematic way we created the caste system, and how we carry on, and how we discriminating the caste towards using the caste towards. And film is, I think, strong medium to narrate that issue and bringing awareness towards the society. So again, in recent year, like Bhavandar Lagan, there's one character uh, uh, in Marathi film called Sarat, and Pandri. There's a South Indian picture called Kala, Madras, Kavali. All this film, all this film are mentioned about, all film are mentioned about the the, the discrimination inside the society, and they try to show the how mentality works, and all director bringing the core issue of the society, and highlight the caste issue. But my favorite director, K. Vishwanath, beautiful picture, Saptapadi in Telugu, and one called Sankrabharanam. He's fantastically created the film about the musician's life. And Sankrabharanam is the story about the musician's life, hierarchy Brahman. He's a great musician, and he gave shelter or teach one prostitute son, and a lot of people opposite, and they have, but he against the all odds, and he fight with society and train this little boy, and it's a fantastic film. Another film called Saptapadi, which is the dancer girl, Pujari's high Brahmin's girl, very talented dancer. She fall in love with one Harijan boy. He's a talented musician, and how this her grandfather fight against the society, and uh, give the hope, and married this girl to this boy. So I think those films give a little bit ray of hope. Films, and we made, I think it's bringing the hope, okay, how the discrimination mind, how we can equality towards each other. Now I'm talking about my own film, The Color of Darkness. When I made this film, and it's happened to my own father in 1965, how they have to face the discriminative, and how they fought against the Kshatriya people, and how they won. And when I was in Australia, and 2009, 2010, maybe a lot of people aware or not about student bashing, or student, a lot of discriminating against the student, Indian student, and a lot of problem was created. Some, and a lot of people were saying, "Oh, these people discriminating towards us, hating Indians." But discrimination, mind, our mentality, how you see these things. So I made this film, and my film started human body, how human psyche, how we think, and how we behave in such certain situations and certain time. Mental power, or is a power of the mm, the is the power of the uh, position. That's we always thinking, and how we justify or how we see the situation. And that's my film talking about. Okay, even India or Australia, UK or America, how the human behavior works and how the power works and how we behave and how the person behave. And that's my film talking about. And same thing in India. I think I understand a lot of people say, "Oh, Britishers did this administrative things and British did these things," but we have to think about a little bit our own self, how to ask our own inner conscious. Okay, this caste system is exist maybe before the British, or maybe before the Mughal, or maybe before that. And if that exists for good reason or bad reason, but how the discrimination or how discriminatory things came in our everyday's life, even the argue sake, okay, we believe the Britishers came and they create all these things, but after they left, still why we carrying that discriminating, that hatred towards each other? That's we have to ask. And I think as a filmmaker, or any filmmaker or any creative person, or either writer, director, musicians, or we also bring that issue and harmony and equality in our work, to present this issue and how to bring equality and how to tackle this issue. And I think that's most important now, these days we have to think about. And my second film also is second film Sadhu, also about this Agori Sadhu. He's a Dalit, and how he become his journey. That's I'm talking in my story. Because India is such a big, interesting, full of culture, and very interesting country, which is India can give a lot of things to world. But first, we have to tackle, we have to understanding rather than blaming anyone. We have to, our society have to grow up in that manner. The caste system should be demolished. The caste system or our mentality should be, we have to become mature enough to understand why we should hate each other because of the caste, why we have to not look at the person as a human. Because when blacks lives matter happened, I was discussing with my friend, and if you see, when 60%, 70% Britishers, sorry, the 60 to 70% American white people came on the street and fight for the black people. I, my question, my curious, okay, every day, even the 2 day, how many Dalit have suffer, or how many Dalit have uh, injustice with them every day in India? Only few people stood for them or fight for them. How many people came on the street, or come on the street and say, okay, this is the problem, we have to sort it out, we have to we can't tolerate this atrocity or this injustice anymore? That's my question to panel and a lot of people. I have to, and I ask everyone as because I'm all wonder, okay, why we not because we always say Vasudev Kutumb, we always talk this beautiful phrase, but our own people, we can't become bring them as a member. And as a creative person, as a filmmaker, as a writer, I always bring, and a lot of people bring that issue time by time in this issue, these things, why bringing awareness or self-conscious and provoking to our own people. We have to um, think about, okay, caste, do we need caste? We have to ask this question. And as Ms. Lavanya says, reservations should be demolished. Reservations should, I agree. But before we should demolish reservation, if we demolish caste and everyone equality, I think reservation and everything automatically demolish. Everything goes, and actually we can then bring or give a lot of good things to world. I believe that things. And the race and caste is again very different things. And I think I strongly believe we are very intellectual and talented people as an Indian. And if we think and we can proceed and we can go further and asking our own self-conscious and think about our generation, we should give our generation also the why happen and why we do these things and why we have to rid of these things. We should educate the people, not agitate. And that's makes a lot of difference. And I think that's way we bring very harmony and we can create very equity of society. And that's I strongly believe. This is my thoughts. And thank you very much to everyone listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Girishji. It was wonderful to listen to your thoughts. And as you rightly said, that we must have the introspection about it. Yes, we agree that race is different, but the discrimination that has been systemized into our system, and still we are experiencing it. So how to address these issues and how to project these issues even from the creative medium of films and other platforms. And as you very pertinent question. If there is a certain atrocity or discrimination against our own people, why we are not fighting together? And we must stand together and we must educate our people, and we have to address this very mindset. And that is what these all the platforms and discussion is all about. And now
Okay.
I will move forward to our last panelist, Milinda Kamble, who is tirelessly working for upliftment of many people among our own community and among in all India. So, with his experiences, he will be able to answer many of the questions and how to address this very pertinent core issue of caste discrimination, and how to move forward as a inclusive and prospering society. So, Milind Kamble.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Sanjay Tambert. Very first, I congratulate the Social Study Foundation for organizing discussion and deliberation on very important issue, Black Lives Matters, Indian Perspective, and publishing e-book. And today, organized discussion on reflection on race and caste. Just the learned panelists have expressed very important viewpoints on the subject. So thanks to Upendra Baghelji, Professor Lavanya, Girish Makwana. Unfortunately, today uh, Mr. Lagade is not joining, but he will share his views. Let me position myself in the today's discussion on reflection on race and caste. Basically, I am an engineer and Indian entrepreneur, founder of a Dalit Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and policymaker. We are working with the central government of India and all Indian state governments. Dicky is well recognized by the governments. Now it has become an umbrella organization and one-stop solution for Dalit entrepreneurs. We have completed 15 years of a glorious journey. When I thought of to work about Dalit community for the economic empowerment in India, first I read Dr. Ambedkar's writing and speeches, and particularly economic thoughts. And it is inspired me to lead the way. Second, I studied black capitalism in US, civil rights movement, affirmative action, supplier diversity, employment diversity policies adopted by the US government, and very proactive role by the US industry. I read about Booker T. Washington, Martin Luther King, and Robert L. Johnson, who became a first black billionaire. Then I come across the story of Hollywood heroes, Oprah Winfrey, Denzel Washington, Smith, Halle Berry. I found interesting emancipation journey of African Americans. And also, we all know the journey of Mr. Barack Obama, who elected the president of United States in 2009, and he completed consecutive 2 terms. My my friend Professor Brown, he frequently comes to India with the student delegation. He's a professor from Indiana University. Once I asked him, "Tell me, Professor Brown, how one black man in White House?" So he told me, "Milind, the African Americans work hard and decided 50 years back they have to enter into the all walks of life, and they entered into the Hollywood, they entered into the enterprises, they entered into the sports, athletics, and they proved their importance in the US society." And also he replied me that there are thousands of business Obamas developed in the US. That's why one Barack Obama is in a White House. So finally, I draw inspiration from Dr. Ambedkar's economic thought, black capitalism, and desegregation movement. This is very important. Desegregation movement in United States. The process of ending the separation of two groups or two races, which played very great role of formulating social reform. And finally, I set up Dalit Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry in 2005 at Pune. I'm impressed by three personalities: chartering the goals, be job givers, fight caste with capital, developing business leadership in a Dalit community, and promotion of entrepreneurship spirit among Dalit to their socio-economic problems. By way of democratic instruments, this is very important, by interventions, discussions, debates, and deliberations, and created a complete policy support and ecosystem working with Government of India for the Dalit entrepreneurs in India. I told three personalities which impressed me. That is one, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, of course, is the best known as an Indian jurist, economist, politician, and social reformer who campaigned against social discriminations towards the untouchability. He is the architect of Indian Constitution and champion of a democracy and human rights. He never subscribed the violation in social justice struggle in India. This is a very important point we have to understand. The second personality, Booker T. Washington, was a key proponent of African American businesses and one of the founders of National Negro Business League in 1900. He called for black progress through education and entrepreneurship. Washington mobilized nationwide coalition of mid-class blacks, church leaders, and white philanthropists and politicians with a long-term goal of building the community's economic strength and pride by a focus on self-help and schooling. And third one is Mr. Martin Luther King. Is the best known for advancing civil rights through non-violence and civil disobedience, inspired by his Christian belief and non-violent activism of Mahatma Gandhi. King won the Nobel Peace Prize for combating the racial inequality through non-violent resistance in 1965. Because on the background of Black Lives Matters in US happened, and yes, of course, we have to condemn what incidents is happened and discrimination, but the violence will be not supported. That's why in my complete journey for the economic empowerment of a Dalit community in India, and I have drawn inspiration from so many black incidences which I have mentioned. About today's topic, Indian perspective on race and caste. My so many learned friends, Mr. Baghe, Lavanya, who put a light enough on this subject. And very first, Professor Tambert, in his introduction, he mentioned about caste in India. Definitely, I want to refer here Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's writing to understand the caste in India. At an anthropology seminar, Columbia University, 9th May 1916. In his paper, he has done a critical evaluation of the caste system in India. In his entire evaluation, he is not compared caste with the race. This we have to understand. The another is the annihilation of caste, is an undelivered speech written in the 1936 by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the secretary of a Jat Pat Todak Mandal Society for the Abolition of Caste System, an anti-caste Hindu reformist group organization based in Lahore, invited B.R. Ambedkar to deliver a speech on the caste system in India at their annual conference in 1936. Ambedkar wrote the speech as an essay under the title Annihilation of Caste and sent in advance to the organizers distribution. Organizers found some objectionable content and requested Dr. Ambedkar to read a portion of a speech. Dr. Ambedkar refused to change the comma. Then organizers cancelled the program, and Dr. Ambedkar later on published it. But in that book also, Ambedkar have never mentioned the race, and he never compared the race and caste is equal. So therefore, race caste is these are the two entities. The yes, though both facing discrimination, it means race and caste is not equal. The Constitution of India is a enough competent to deal this caste discrimination and atrocities in India. Each and every country are having some set of problems in their countries. So their constitutions are competent to deal. Similarly, in India, our constitution is drafted by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and which is enough to deal all the atrocity issues just Mr. Baghel, he mentioned the so many measures and articles in the Constitution of India. I will not repeat that. But one point I want to mention here. In 2001, United Nations organized a world conference on racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia at Durban. At that time, Government of India sends his representation and a minister, uh, the minister to the conference, Omar Abdullah, and he categorically told and said that at the conference was organized in the Durban city. Indeed, in this struggle based against the racist regime, India side at the United, we have always regarded racism and racial discrimination as an antithesis of everything humanity stands for. Equality, justice, peace, and progress. It is a negation of a character of the United Nations and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Further, the government of India mentioned in that Mahatma Gandhi, and guided by the legacy of Dr. Ambedkar and other social reformers, the government is committed to the combating and eliminating discrimination in all its manifestation. Over half a century ago, we built into our constitution human fundamental freedoms as justifiable principles. It proscribes laws, supplement in constitutional provisions. The Indian Penal Code prohibits dissemination of ideas that promote. The Constitution pioneered affirmative action programs for the socially disadvantaged. We have put in place an administrative and institutional framework to tackle within our democratic framework different forms of discrimination. Our independent judiciary and ever vigilant media and an active civil society have strengthened the government's effort for attending equality and non-discrimination. Our nationhood is based on values of democracy and rule of law, pluralism, tolerance, and diversity. We stand resolved to counter the forces that seek to destroy these values. This is a very clear statement. And one more point, one more thing is happened over there. There were so many NGOs in India. Those are not true Dalit NGOs, and they have made lot of propaganda and highly exaggerated uh, voices over there. But the government of India, it is a very clear stand on racial discrimination, and caste and Dalit atrocities in India. And our constitution have adopted the United Nations Human Rights Declaration in our constitution. So it's a competent to deal with all these issues. Therefore, and also we are working with the government from so many years, and we are creating awareness in scheduled caste and scheduled tribe communities for the economic empowerment and to reach out to the people with the government programs. And in recent, there is a paradigm shift program is created by the government, like access to the formal banking. Near about 40 crore the people have got a formal access to the banking system through Jandhan. There is a biggest ever social inclusion program for a scheduled caste and scheduled tribe people. It was a Mudra. There were 3 crore beneficiaries from scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. The housing for poor and so many initiatives taken by government of India and very closely with the government, and the government is trying to help to the poor people and to get the justice, and trying to provide them economic benefits, and we are a part of all that. So government is working very hard for the social and financial inclusion, and Constitution of India is a competent deal of these issues. Just so many speakers told. Yes, likewise, I also can say that caste and race are totally different. The internationalization of a caste, we condemn it, because uh, uh, in Indian system is enough to resolve this caste discrimination and atrocities issues. Uh, I am agree that Mr. Makwana told, if one incident happened, then the white society also come onto the road. Similarly, we have to together fight with the caste discrimination in India, and we have to bury this evil of the society. Thank you very much, Mr. Tambert, for inviting me and allowing me to express my views. Thank you.
Thanks, Milin, for a very enlightened perspective about caste and how to move forward. And as the earlier speakers have also said, right from Upendra Baghel sir, Lavanya ma'am, and also Vinesh Makwana. Yes, the race discrimination is there in the other societies, but Indian society is different. There may be certain is not on the ground of physical traits or other things, but we have to move forward. And as you have rightly pointed out, that the society has to find certain ways to move ahead. Communities themselves also have to find certain socio-political and economic instruments related to it. And the government must use various democratic instruments for the progress of the society as together. So all these elements, when we come together, we would certainly end this discrimination. I thank again panelist. I'm now request Pramod Gosavi, Director of SSF. Thanks. Thank you.
Hello and good evening to all. I hope I am audible. There have been efforts of drawing a parallel from events that happen in the West. Similarly, there was a strong effort, and there it is still continuing, of equalizing the race with the caste or caste with the race, and thereby there is a conscious effort on the part of some people and some groups to throw up a false narrative. Therefore, to counter this false narrative and also to create awareness amongst our own people, and to make clear the distinction between the race and caste, we have held this webinar and have deliberated on the issues. Most of the, all the panelists have made very good and very important points. Shri Baghel, in his opening remarks, have said that international instrument does not list caste in of its definition of discrimination. Dr. Lavanya, she has very emphatically said that caste is not an essential feature of Hinduism. or colonial or in the alien era, she has described how it was dealt with and how it has come up to the current state. Kwana has thrown light on the creative angle in discussing the caste system and has made a mention of so many films which have tried to bring up these issues and also tried to promote, say that the discrimination is wrong and there should be an equal treatment given to all, irrespective of which caste he belongs to. Milinji has very emphatically said that the Constitution of India is competent to handle all these issues, and internationalization of caste is very wrong. All these points are very important, and I think this is the beginning of from the Social Studies Foundation on. Coming up on these issues as per the requirement of the time and deliberating on it and creating a positive narrative. I thank all the panelists for participating and spending their valuable time with us. I also thank Dr. Sanjay Tambat for being the coordinator and taking all the efforts to conduct this deliberation in this webinar. I will also thank Media Vidya, who have been our media partners, and they have organized this so very well. And last of all, and not the last but not the least, the audience. We have many eminent people who have participated in this seminar as the audience, and I'm sure they have got valid points for deliberations which we may be having further as a follow-up to this webinar, and there would be many more programs which would come up from Social Studies Foundations in this respect. So we'll end with a positive note. These programs would definitely help everyone to bring up a positive narrative, and let us think of bringing in equality in the true sense and making everyone equal. So thank you all. Thank you very much, and bye for now.
Thanks all again, and
Thank you.
thank you, Upendra ji. Thank you, Dr. Lavanya. Thank you, Milins, and also thank you, Girish Makhwana, for spending your
Thank you.
valuable time. And we
Thank
will
you. Thank
all be in touch, and we will take it forward.
Yes,
And
yes,
we will
indeed,
keep
indeed.
discussing about.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us good time. This
Thank you very
time.
much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Soumitra ji. Namaste, Edward. Hello. Namaste. Yes.
धन्यवाद कार्यक्रम काफी अच्छा रहा।
हाँ नमस्ते जी, नमस्ते।
धन्यवाद. Namaste.